All right, so I want to have a frank discussion today, and the uh, the reason we had a guest speaker scheduled for today, and then and it didn't work out. So the reason I want to have a frank discussion is because I always say that things like that don't work out on purpose. Like there's a reason. And so I'd like to talk a lot about your vision, and let's talk a little bit about what. Let's see, we're recording. Let's talk a little bit about what I mean by what is your vision. Um, in in 1979, I was basically typing up listings at, well, actually it started in about 1976 or 1977. I took a job, um, one of my many jobs while I was in college was typing up listings. And now a lot of you, like, I think of how young Valerie Jennings is, and she's probably one of the youngest on this call. But so back then, think about this. I used to have a typewriter, and in this case, it was called a Selectric, which was a newer electric typewriter. And I used to have to put carbon paper in between the two papers, carbon paper, and then type up the listing. And then it was newly invented that there was Correcto tape and everything. And I was also working at my mom's pizza parlor that she had at the time, and uh, I was working at Wendy's Hamburgers in Castro Valley. And then at the same time, then my dad gets a job transferred to Athens, Greece. So we all pack up the family and we move to Greece, and we come back. Um, I'm getting, back involved in college again, and because we've been out of the country for a year and a half, 2 years. And then, I started finishing up my degree in biology and applying for dental schools. So when I was in high school, I liked working with cars. And I noticed everybody that worked with cars had dirty fingers. And I really liked working with cars. But when I was in high school, I thought to myself, seriously, this is how my thinking process went. I was a ninth grader in high school in Southern California. And the process that I had through in my mind was that I liked working with my fingers and my hands. But what could I do with my fingers and my hands where my hands wouldn't be dirty, filthy dirty at the end of the day? All right. Now, like I said, I was a car buff. I loved muscle cars, older American cars. I loved European, like I was a big fan of Lamborghini as a young kid. I had this awareness of cars that was crazy. And so I thought to myself, well, you know what? I could be a dentist. If I was a dentist, then I could work with my fingers and my hands and have clean hands when I came home at night. So I decided in ninth grade that I wanted to be a dentist. All right. That's all. And I figured, I'm a hard worker. I can get through high school and get good enough grades and get admitted to college and all of that. And I proceeded on that vision. Okay. That vision that I would become a dentist. Now, you have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, there was a lot I didn't know then. So even me telling you the story about what happened then and what I remember, that the story I'm telling is infected by all of the stuff I've learned and realized since then. So you are never telling, when you're telling about your past, your story is never truly, truly real and authentic because you're telling it from a completely new perspective now, many years later. Now, I can remember one thing. I can remember the thought process about thinking about dirty hands, but wanting to work with my hands. I have I subscribe to this magazine called Auta, A-U-T-A. And I like that Gilbert nodded his head. I'm a big fan. Now there's a lot of older, very expensive, older, historic muscle cars for sale in this magazine. And I was looking at a picture of one of the engines, and I looked at my wife And I said, see, now that's an engine I can work on, because I remember working on engines when they didn't have all the computers. Now, you might be thinking, why are you telling me the story, Rick? It's driving me nuts. Can we get to the point? Well, part of the point is the story, and I'll tell you why. I, to this day, as a 63-year-old man who's had successes and failures, don't believe as myself as a true visionary, right? Like what's possible, what's probable, um, and um, the reason I say that is my uncle who got into real estate. He was driving an Anheuser-Busch beer truck in the early 60s, 1962, and he got he had a stroke. And while he was laid up from the stroke, he studied real estate. Now, Tina, you know Bill Aboomrod Jr. This is Bill Sr. I'm talking about. I don't know if there's anybody else on here who remembers Bill Sr. Tom Smythe might.
Oh,
Tom,
yeah, I sure do. Yeah, he was a great guy. Yeah.
yeah. So he's laid up in bed studying real estate, thinking, gosh, this beer truck thing is probably not going to work for me, but long term. So by 1964, he was considered one of the top real estate agents in Newark, Fremont, and Union City, the area that I grew up in Alameda County, California. And he said, man, this is good. Well, he was full-blooded Lebanese like my dad was, but born and raised in the United States. His wife was full-blooded Lebanese, born and raised in Lebanon, just like my mom. Well, his wife and my mom were sisters. That's why he was my uncle. Um, and the reason I say that is he was having so much success. He told his wife, my aunt, and he told my mother, he said, you got to get all your relatives from Lebanon to move here, learn English, and get a real estate license. So, what is that? That's a vision for many people to get behind. Do you get what I'm saying now? And there's a reason. I'm going to wrap this up in a nice little bow for you before we're done. That was a vision that somebody else presented for us to all follow. Okay. Um, there is so now he's telling his sisters, these people are born and raised in Lebanon, still live in Lebanon. They ran farms, they grew grapes and vines, and they had all these different businesses that they were doing, but they were really all hardworking guys, right? Um, and anyway, so in 1968, all of these aunts and uncles, mostly uncles, started coming over from the old country, which Lebanon. And now, let me interrupt. In 1965, after this little, my uncle started getting successful in real estate, my dad got transferred from here in the Bay Area to Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Okay. So now we're leaving, and then my uncle's doing all these new things. He went from a beer truck driver to a successful real estate agent. His quality of the car he drove started going up. They moved from where we were living to a much more expensive neighborhood. Like things were going well for them. So by the time we took a vacation 3 years later in 1968, we took a vacation from our living in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, to come back to the United States because we had 3 more years to go. And we visited their house. I'm like, wow. It was like I felt like my uncle was wealthy, right? He lived in this big, beautiful home that was like twice as big as the one that we had seen before we left for overseas. And there was this big, huge Cadillac in the driveway. And I was like, wow, right? Um, and but guess what? You have to remember, I hadn't been to ninth grade yet. I was still like, why did I love the Cadillac? Because it was a cool car, and I'd lift the hood and see 500 cubic inch engine. I mean, I was like lit up. So we go back um, to Saudi Arabia after that little vacation. I'm infected now by something called the Oakland Raiders and the Oakland A's, and I'm more of a fan of cars than ever. And I'm what, in 1968 I'm 11, and I go back, and we live in an area that's all Americans, and um, they'd have to work on their cars that they did. So I got all into that. Now, when we end this tour in Lebanon and Saudi Arabia on my dad's job transfer, we come back to the United States in 1971. And by now, all of my uncles and aunts and cousins are speaking English with a thick accent, thick Lebanese accent, and getting their real estate licenses. Everybody. By 1971, I had 80 relatives with a real estate license. 80. 80. That's a lot. Okay. Now, why am I saying that to you? That was a vision. Okay. Because 1971 was my ninth grade. Ninth grade was when I decided I want to be a dentist. I didn't want to be a real estate agent, but nobody said anything about me being a real estate agent. I was just witnessing that all around me. Okay. So ninth grade, 1971, I decide I'm going to be a dentist, and I start working towards that, loving my life, finishing high school, and then getting ready for college. And they tell you, oh, if you're going to be a dentist, you got to get a degree in biology, and then you have to take these tests called the, DCATs, dental preparation tests, and da 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 da. In my junior year, 1979, I apply for dental schools and I get rejected by 13 dental schools. And all the relatives are saying, get into real estate, forget dental school. And not only that, but they were telling, like, my Uncle Bill, the guy who started this whole thing, his son wanted to be an attorney. And he discouraged his son from being an attorney. He went to law school. He did all of that. He had a job lined up with the same company my dad worked for Lockheed, to be a corporate attorney. And my uncle told him, he said, and the cousin I'm talking about now has 8 real estate companies, right? And my uncle told him, he said, I'll tell you what, while you're waiting to take the bar exam, you come to work for me. I'm going to pay you $5,000 a month. Now, you guys, $5,000 a month in the 80s was a ton of freaking money. He said, I'll pay you $5,000 a month, but you're going to come to work every day from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday. You're going to do exactly as I tell you. And after 3 months, you will have the right to pick $5,000 a month or what you make on your own. That's what he told my cousin. What's happening there? My uncle, had a vision for his son, right? He had a vision for his son. He had a vision for me. He said, forget all that dental school stuff. Get your real estate license and come into real estate with the rest of your family. What was he playing on? The value of family that I had. Why am I telling the story? Not so you know more about me, so that you apply it to what's gone on in your life up until now, right this minute. Apply it. Like, start thinking, well, whose vision did I follow? How did I get to where I am today? Who affected my vision of my future? This is a vital point for all of you. I see, Gina, my assistant, grew up with my sons. I mean, I've known her since she was 12. She's almost 31. When I'm talking about things like this, I want Gina to hear this too. I would love for my sons to hear this, to say, who's affecting your vision of your future, right? I kept saying, I'm not a visionary, but that's not a bad idea. But I tell my uncle, I'm not doing this for a living forever. That's what I was saying, right? I got rejected by dental schools. Now, May of 1980, I have a real estate license, and I start going into the real estate office, working in my mom's restaurant, getting a job at FedEx. Like, I was working 100 freaking hours a week or more, seriously, because I was inspired. I had nothing. The one thing about my Lebanese relatives is they knew how to work hard. They measured your ability to be a great human being by how hard you work. So you didn't hear anybody complaining, how hard I worked, they would show off about, I got no sleep, I worked all night, like that was a show off thing. Like, nobody shows off about that now. No, I got my 8 hours. I'm good. So
I totally agree with you there.
What's that, Lucky?
I said, I totally agree with you there.
Yeah. So that's when you think about all of these things, we were all driven by someone else's vision, until at some point you have a vision for yourself. Right. So now I'm going to carry on. I get my real estate license, and I'm still telling my uncle into the 80s that I'm not doing this for the rest of my life. I'm just till I find something better. And, I got to tell you guys, when I got my degree in biology, my favorite part of biology was marine mammals, which were whales and dolphins. And so in my last year, knowing that I wasn't getting admitted to dental school, I did a lot of studying on whale behavior, marine mammal behavior, and finished off my college degree, got my Bachelor of Science degree in biological sciences. And would you be surprised? I got a BS in BS. That's what I got. So anyway, so I tell you all of this so that I can get to the part about being the realtor. So In 1981, I meet the woman who is going to be in 1983. We get married. In 1986, we have kids. Part of the reason for going to FedEx was so I could get medical benefits, which I would have had to pay for individually as a realtor. But I was still selling real estate. I even took a corporate job. I worked in a bakery all the time selling real estate. And here's the one thing that happened. No matter what job I did, I convinced the people at that job to use me to buy real estate. And I've heard people say, well, nobody wants to buy, I have a job at UPS and I don't want to talk to people about real estate there because of this or because of that. That was bull. When I worked at FedEx, I would literally leave FedEx at 7 at night in my purple FedEx shorts, okay, and go show houses. And I was showing them to FedEx drivers who'd been home since 5 o'clock and had showered and gotten in clothes. So we'd get to the house, and the people thought I was the buyer and my client was the realtor because I was dressed in FedEx shorts. And then I'd reach into my FedEx short pocket, that big pocket where we used to put our stuff, and there would be my business card. And I go, no, I'm the realtor, right? And then my clients would come in and the people would look at me like, and I didn't even care. I was like, I just need to make money, right? So I want to stop right there and say that just like I'm telling this story and I'm a bit emotional because I'm thinking about how blind my drive was. My drive was completely blind to sleep, to hours of work, to anything but I knew that my dad set an example of a man who supplied for his family. That's all I knew. So what was that? That was someone else's vision. My dad's vision that as a man, you supplied for your family. By the way, guys, none of this is good, bad, right, or wrong. My dad's vision wasn't necessarily right or good. It was just what worked for him and for his family. I was part of that family. So we make decisions sometimes weighing it out by judgmental words. What's good, what's bad, what's right, what's wrong. When I sit with Casey, my second and final wife of my life, and we talk, it's so different. The way she was born and raised and developed the minds and thoughts and the visions that guided her. So 1986 rolls around, 87, I'm still selling 8, 10, 12 homes a year, enough to add, plus all these other jobs I was doing. I can remember my wife getting a little mad at me, but not so mad. And I can remember to this day at that time that she wasn't so mad because she knew that I felt I had to supply for the family, that I went out and showed a home on an Easter Sunday once. Now, I got to tell you guys, since then, I know thousands of people who show homes on Easter Sunday, right? But coming from a very strongly Christian religious background, my wife at the time being Catholic and I was Orthodox, that Easter Sunday was pretty big deal, right? That you went out on Easter Sunday? When? Like before or after the baskets for the kids? Like when was that fit in, right? And I actually did, right? Before going to church and after we gave the kids their Easter baskets, I ran out, showed a couple houses in my Sunday best and came back. So, and then 1989 rolls around. I'm still working a few hours a week in my mom's restaurant, probably about 25 hours, but I'd ended everything else. I wasn't doing anything else except helping my mom in her restaurant and selling real estate. And that year was the year of lead receiving. Now write that down. Lead receiving. That was the year that lead receiving was amazing. Notice I didn't say lead generating because I wasn't generating leads. I was just sitting by the phone and answering it. 89 was a phenomenal year. It started in late 88, I can remember, right? It started being crazy in the middle of late 88, and 80 beginning of 89 all the way up until August or September was insane. You just sit by the phone and pick it up and someone say, come and list my house. Come and sell me a house. I mean, I can remember holding an open house, and back then we wrote everything on contracts by hand. And I had some people sitting in the family room writing an offer and some people sitting in the living room writing an offer at one open house. And I'm pretty new to this. I'm like, holy cow, how do you do this, right? It was crazy. So I sold 60 something houses that year in 1989, like still working at my mom's restaurant for part of it. And it was mid 89 when I said, I'm done. I got enough money in the bank so if I don't sell another house, I can live 6 months. And I'm sure I can sell another house in 6 months. And my wife and I, and now I had, by this time, I had a newborn who was born in 89, and I had a 3-year-old. And so I was like, wow, this is a big decision. No more jobs, just real estate. Right. So for 9 years, I did other stuff to bring in money. And even after that, people were approaching me about network marketing companies. Oh, you can do this while you sell real estate. I was always looking for ways to make money. Anybody else but me always looking for ways to make money? Share with me if that's something. Yeah. Like Gilbert, your culture alone is one, man, you bust your butt. You get to work, you make the money, you support the family. But I had my own vision that year. I had my own vision that I could make real estate work, that I could make a commissioned income actually work for me. Which is scary, right? If you base it on my behavioral style is one that's not typically willing to exist on a not for sure paycheck. All right. So it's scary for everyone, right? But I was seeing all my uncles around me. What was I doing? I was using their vision of themselves, driving these beautiful cars. Guys, there were no car phones, right? There was these new cell phones that were coming out that were huge, right? But my uncles in the mid 80s, long before there was ever those, had an actual real telephone mounted on the hump in their Cadillacs. That's how much money my uncles were making. And you would pick that up and you'd get a marine operator, and you'd say, connect me to this number, right? Now, like I would just look up to my uncle. So what vision was I using? The vision they had for themselves, that we can live in a nice house and have a fancy car, right? So I just kept busting my butt. 1990 hit and the market crashed in Northern California. I went from selling 60 something homes to 14 something homes. And I thought, oh my gosh, I might need to get out of real estate. I did a few part-time, a few substitute teacher jobs. I did this, I did that. At the end of 1990, or in the middle of 1990, we were doing our taxes from 89. We'd made so much money that we owed 40,000 in taxes and we didn't have the money. So we went to take a second out on our house to pay the RS what we needed, right? And we were making no money that year. I said, can you guys balance these 2 years out, average them or something? No, pay your damn taxes, right? I was living on other people's visions. So when it crashed, what did I have? I had nothing because I had no vision for me. At the end of that year in October, I heard about this thing called the National Association of Realtors Convention. Now, you got to remember, I'm 10 years in the business now. And I'm like, I'm reading about it in the realtor magazines and saying that you could learn so much and all of this stuff. And I got to tell you guys, I said to myself, I went to my wife, and we're essentially, like I said, we're broke. We're living paycheck to paycheck. And I said, I think I should go to this. And she goes, where is it? I said, it's in New Orleans. And she goes, well, you remember when we got to go to my sister's wedding in New York. So we need money for that too. And I said, all right, what do you think? And we decided that I would go to this thing and put it all on credit cards, right? Well, I got to tell you, best decision I ever made, because I actually got a glimpse for my vision for my future by myself while in New Orleans where I knew nobody. I kind of glommed onto these 4 women that were old enough to be older than my mother, not necessarily my grandmother. And I just kind of glommed onto them. They said, oh, we'll show you around. We'll tell you what classes to take. And I said, I only want to take classes that tell me how to sell more real estate. Because they had classes on everything, technology, even back in the 90s, right? I took 157 pages of notes in 4 days. And I remember no vision for myself other than what I kept hearing. One of the things that I realized then is I said, you guys are going to think this hilarious. What am I doing right now? I'm speaking to you. I got a glimpse of me speaking on stage because I was so impressed with the speakers there. And some of the speakers there I idolized. I remember there was this one lady, Terry Murphy. I heard her speak in 1990. She's now one of my closest friends and one of the coaches at the same coaching company. Now, you got to remember, 1990, I'm this 10-year veteran. I'm 32 years old, and I'm looking at this lady on stage going, I want to be just like you, right? And today we're good buddies, right? The main thing, now think about this. I was taking notes on how to sell more houses. People were talking about your database and calling and door knocking and everything you could imagine that I've shared with you before. That was so life changing to me. But the best thing that happened is one of the last classes I took. Now these ladies took me out at night and they said, "Come on, we'll have gumbo and we'll have beignets and all this stuff you get in Louisiana." It was just terrific. But man, I was taking it seriously. Like I was in my hotel room at night reading all this, And one of the last classes I took, I remember I loved the instructor. He was such a good storyteller. And that's probably where I got influenced about storytelling in your speaking career. And he said, "How many people took a ton of notes this week?" Right? And I'm raising my hand and he goes, "How many of you have like 50 things you want to do when you get home now, new things?" I'm like, that's me. I was like all over that. And he goes, "I'm going to teach you something that I think will really help you going forward. How many of you flying back home?" Raise my hand. He goes, "I want you to go through your notes on your flight." He said, "And all I want you to do is go through it. And I want you to narrow it down to the best 10 ideas you heard." He said, "And it's going to take some doing to get it down to 10." He said, "And then right before you land, I want you to go through all the notes again and get it narrowed down from 10 to 3 new things that you will incorporate in 1991, because this is the end of 90. It's in November." And I'm like, okay, I'm getting this. Because I was thinking I really got to do better. So I had done a little bit over like I did about 2 million in sales in 1990 that year. And I really started to get a vision. And I did that. I went through all my notes and I narrowed down to 3 things that I was going to do differently. I was going to call my database a lot more. I was going to door knock a lot more. And I was going to follow up a lot better. All right. So in 1991, I doubled 1990. Still wasn't a really big deal in production, but man, it sure helped financially by doing those 3 things. All right. Then my dad was licensed all this time. When I went in 1990, my dad had been licensed in 1970, but he had a full-time job with Lockheed. Right. And he is retiring from Lockheed and he goes, "Hey, I'll go with you." So we went in 1991, we went to the NAR convention together. And we started making this a habit of going to conventions. Right. And in 1991, I did the same thing, took a bunch of notes, get on the flight. On the way back, I start, right? Now, you got to remember, this is the initiation of me having a vision for my own future. I started seeing myself as a real estate speaker, getting involved with the board, all of these things. I did all those almost immediately, starting in like late 89, early 90s, started getting involved and really started to be enamored about it. Started paying attention to listing more houses than representing more buyers and everything I could do. I was listening to Mike Ferry cassette tapes. I mean, I was driven. Like I was like, this is going to be my career. I'm never going back to 1990 again, where I was broke, right? And really, really busted out. So every year, my dad and I would go. We'd take notes, and we would get back to work when we got back, and we'd say, "Let's incorporate these ideas." And my dad was still doing it just touchy-feely here. He was helping my mom run a restaurant, selling a few houses. He was in retirement. He had a retirement check, so he was good. And why do I tell you this story? Because it was now that I started to see a vision for myself. And in 1993, someone else had a vision for me. In 1993, a company approached me and said, "Hey, we've got a real estate office in your town, and we think you'd be the perfect guy to run it." And I go, "Look, the only thing I've ever run is restaurants, before now, other than just trying to run my own real estate career." And by now, I was getting up there as one of the top listing agents in 1993 in the area, in the Alameda County area. And I said, "What makes you think I'll be a good manager?" And they said, "Because good listing agents make good managers." And I said, "Why is that?" And they said, "Because good listing agents are like good recruiters." So amidst now, I'm in a real estate office with my uncles and cousins and all of these, and they're like, don't go do that. That's crazy. You know what it's like running a real estate office? Now, this is my uncle who's running a real estate office that I'm in. He said it's like adult babysitting. And I look at my uncle, I'm like, what? That's how you feel about us? Like he owns this real estate office and he's telling me not to go run another real estate office. And one of the things I did, it was tough. Everybody said I was an idiot to leave the family business to go run someone else's real estate office. I was 34 years old when I made the decision. It was the year I would turn 35. And there was only one person out of all of those relatives who pulled me aside. And you know who that was? It's my dad. He said, "What's the worst that could happen if you go take this job?" And I said, "That I suck at it and I got to come back to Uncle Bill's office." He goes, "Is that bad?" And I said, "Not really." He goes, "Yeah." He said, "Don't ever put yourself in a position where you're going to have to say, 'I wish I had' versus 'I'm glad I did.'" He said, "Don't put yourself in a position where you're going to end up saying, 'I wish I had' versus 'I'm glad I did.'" That was the only guy. All the rest of the family thought I was a nut. And my dad saw what was possible. And I had great people. I surrounded myself with great people. And everybody said, "Wow, what a great accident to happen that somebody would approach you." There's no accidents. Everything happens exactly as it was designed to. Right. And I went on to be a great recruiter. I was recognized by Century 21 as one of the top recruiters in the world for them. All of that came out of association with that company that hired me, a little independent company. And remember, I had visions for myself now because I was speaking and training to real estate agents. This is only 1993. The first time I ever thought of training real estate agents was in 1990 when I was broke at the NAR convention. So we are less than 3 years after that, and I'm doing what I saw myself doing in 1990 that I had never done before. Yeah, I was emceeing charity events. I knew how to hold a microphone, but I wasn't teaching or guiding or coaching real estate agents. Right? So now when people say, "How long have you been coaching?" I know, May of 1993, I started coaching and speaking and talking to real estate agents and running a company. That's, what is that, 28 years now? So here's what I want you to think about. This is the reason for my story is it's okay to catch other people's visions. In 2001, I caught Gary Keller's vision. I opened up 9 Keller Williams offices, 9, right? Lost everything because of doing that. Well, I shouldn't say that, because of my decisions that led to doing that. I definitely take full responsibility for where I ended up. But it's still me seeing someone else's vision and then envisioning myself in it. And that's what I want you to think about. It's not a good, bad, right, or wrong thing to not have a really big vision for yourself. You can always catch someone else's vision. I tell people that all the time. You don't believe in yourself? Find someone who believes in you more than you do. They're all around you. They are. The people that love you usually see you bigger than you see yourself. And they'll hold you capable of doing that. So here's the thing. A lot of what happens in our lives is exactly what was meant to happen in your life, but it shows up in a different package or looking a little differently than you expected it. Now, I'm still a recruiter to this day, right? I still recruit. I think there's a beautiful lady on here named Patrice Payne, and I think about our conversations over almost 6 months before she decided to join me, right? And they weren't conversations about, "Why aren't you coming to my company?" They were conversations about, "What's the vision you see for yourself? And how can I support you in getting that?" Right? Why do we get on calls like this? Why I do the same thing you do. You're getting on my call, but I get on other people's calls because we want to open up our mind to what's possible. Because what? We do not know everything. I don't know what I don't know. If I wake up every morning agreeing to live by I don't know what I don't know, there's a good chance I'll learn something new today. You've heard me say it. I want to be hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. Hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. And I want to surround myself with more people that are like that. Because if they're hungry and humble and smart and coachable, they probably are on a path. They're getting somewhere, and they know enough to be surrounding themselves with other people that are like that and learning from them, right? So same thing as where I am right now. Like I saw my vision of I'm going to own real estate offices. I'm going to have money coming in, and wow, that vision blew up. I had real estate offices, but there was no money coming in. There was only money going out. What do? Change your vision, right? What's the one thing that rescued me when I lost everything? The one thing that rescued me was my knowledge of how to get my butt back to work and sell more houses. That's the one thing. I know one thing, how to work hard and sell more houses. One of my favorite motivational speaker actors is Will Smith, right? Now, if you've never listened to Will Smith on YouTube do motivational talks, you should. But I can remember him showing up on Johnny Carson, but it wasn't Johnny Carson then. I think it might have been Jay Leno, and saying that, you know, he remembers people talking to him about why do you do so well in real estate, and he said, because I will work harder than anybody and I will never stop. And he said, this is what he said, it'd be like Brad Pitt challenging me to longevity on a treadmill. Who can run on the treadmill the longest before they either fall off or turn it off and get off? And when he told that story, he said, I will die on the treadmill. I will die on the treadmill. And it was the speech really resonated with me. And I'd urge you to look it up because I don't remember the details and nobody delivers it like Will Smith himself. But that resonated with me so much because that was me. I was willing to die on the treadmill. I was willing to do whatever it took to get back up, to get to where I could support myself and my family again, and to create a vision for being able to one day stop. Right? It's so much fun to sell real estate, but it's much more fun to one day be able to say, oh, I'm done with that and I'm okay. I got money. I'm good. All right. So all I'm going to ask you to do is not beat up on yourself if you don't have a vision. Borrow someone else's, use someone else's belief to create a vision that pushes you to do what you know to do that will get you to that vision. Now, you've heard me tell this part before. I don't think what I've just shared with you today is not something I don't think I've ever shared with anybody. The detail of the story going back to ninth grade, I don't think I've ever done that with anybody except maybe my family. But when I went out on my very first date with the woman I'm married to now, and it wasn't intended at that time to be a date, it's just what we call it now. We're coming up on the 13-year anniversary of that next month. We barely know each other. I mean, we know each other pretty good because I taught some classes she was in and we bump into each other. But the purpose of the meeting was for her to explain to me about a personal development course that she wanted me to take. And, she was, I was 2008 in April, when we had that date, I was 50. I was 50 and she was 31, 32. And I'm listening to this young lady talk to me. And I finally said, would you please tell me why for 2 years you've come to see me once or twice a month to talk to me about this course that you want me to take it? And that's what we're here to talk about today. But why would you pursue me so much? I mean, are you getting paid? And she said, nope. And she told me a little bit about, why she had a passion for the course. But I said, okay, I see why you have a passion for the course, but why me in this instance? Why are you pursuing me? And she goes, oh, that's easy. She said, it's because I see you much bigger than you see yourself. Right? This is like, no, Rebecca, I'm talking about something called PSI seminars, which is very similar, very similar. Just it's the same concepts, everything taught by another company. But the reason that resonated with me, here I am 50, she's 33, 32. She was 32. Which I remember she turned 33 the next month. And she's saying to me something that I've never heard anybody in my family say to me, or anybody, all the different mentors I had. Now, they said it in different ways. Like my bosses, when I ran that real estate company before, when I became a big, great recruiter and everything, they must have seen me bigger than I saw myself because they trusted this guy who'd never run a real estate office to come. There's lots of evidence that people saw you bigger than you saw yourself, but no one actually saying, I see you bigger than you see yourself. Somebody saying that, I got a lump in my throat. I was like, I can't cry in front of this young lady. I barely know her. Right. But that alone set another vision. Well, if somebody else sees me bigger than I see myself, couldn't I start to believe I'm bigger than I see myself right now? That I could be a bigger, better version of me? So those are the things that I work on every day, even to this point, right? I can talk to you about it, I can get emotional about it, but at the same time, I got to work on that stuff every day. Every day. And working on it is what allows me to do the uncomfortable things like still picking up the phone, still talking to people, because I want there to be a day when I don't have to. I want there to be. And I want it to be soon. Okay? So we got to ramp up, all of us. We got to lock our arms together and really make this work. Okay? And if not, it's okay. Say, screw it, I'm out. I'm done with real estate. I'm going to go get a regular paycheck. It's okay. It's not failure. It's changing your mind. It's okay. It's creating a new vision for yourself somewhere else. Now I'm going to take a quick look at the chat, see if I didn't miss anything. Let's see. Yep, Emilio, that's good. I was selling jewelry and had to search it. That's great, Gilbert. I want to hear more about that gemologist thing. I might want to pick your brain. She who has the listings owns the market, right, Tina? My uncle Bill of Boomerang used to say, he who lists lasts, right? Oh, Carla, great question. I'm going to answer that. What disc profile tends to be the most coachable? Yeah, okay. What is another word other than recruit? Attract. That's another word for that. So here's the thing. Who asked about the behavioral style? Carla? Did you? Okay. So people say that all the time. Which behavioral style is most coachable? It's actually usually an S or an I. And however, the whole idea about being coachable. So there's people who get coaching because they feel it's the right thing to do, not because they're ready or open. That's why when I say you've got to be hungry, humble, smart, and coachable, there's so many people who believe themselves to be coachable, but when you talk to them, my wife asked me to reach out to a friend of hers recently. And, I was talking to this guy and, everything I said, he had a rebuttal for. And so instantly I was feeling like, well, he was definitely hungry because that's why he wanted to talk, but he was not coachable because he almost rebutted everything I said. Um, and and so that's the whole thing, is that you have to look around you and say, yes, Carla, it's hungry, humble, smart, and coachable. So, and what that brings me to is, are you learning for the sake of knowing, or are you learning for the sake of doing? And I shared that part with you guys before, because there's professional students out there. They just keep going to every class and every meeting, and then they don't sell any more houses as a result of it. So are you learning for the sake of knowing or for the sake of doing? And the way I relate it is this: when I'm reading a history book or a story, a history story, then you're learning for the sake of knowing. Okay, like, oh, I want to read an era piece. I watched a series called Poldark. It was a series on PBS about the war, what was going on in England while the war was going on in the United States in the 1700s. What was going on in England, and it was a good story. But I wasn't watching that that series so that I could do something different. I was watching it for the sake of knowing. But when you're talking about your business and succeeding in life, when you better be learning for the sake of doing. Learn something and then go apply it. Others have come before you. Anthony Robbins used to say that the most successful people in the world are just professional modelers who have modeled themselves after others who've come before them. And it's not me necessarily, but it's me directing you to find that person you want to model after. So that's my message for you today. And all of that just came out of the fact that our speaker backed out, our guest speaker. So let me know if you need any help with anything. I'll just check the chat real quick. Thank you, Regina, for always being on. And yeah, that's it. So remember, the recording will go out. Our talk today wasn't really about real estate if you paid attention. It was about life and vision and belief. So if you have somebody you want to share the recording with, we send the recording back out every Wednesday morning. It'll show up in your email box. And if you want to, use it to help somebody else in your life, you're more than welcome to do that. All right. Everybody have a great weekend, and I'll see you all here next Friday.
Thank you, Rick.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Rick.
Thank you.
Make it a great
Bye,
day.
everybody.
Bye, Kimberly Blue.
Have a blessed weekend.